Call the meeting. Can I get approval of are there any public present? Don't see any. Can I get
Doesn't
approval?
look like it, Christina.
All right. Everybody get a chance to review the meeting minutes from February? And if so, can I get approval for meeting minutes unless otherwise corrected?
No corrections, but I did have a question, and happy to have moved the minutes be approved, but the second, I guess, section C, the 4th Street Brooklyn Arts discussion that we had, we will revisit that, Cameron, at some point, is that right? Because I know you guys did a lot of work getting that put together, and I know there's some issues there that need to probably be talked about, that you all raised, so at some point, we're going to talk about that again, right?
Yeah, I think, Michael, that will be the first of many discussions
Okay.
in this forum. So I think what we got from the committee was kind of let's slow down, halt. What I'll do is kind of we'll put those notes back together. Maybe we'll bring it back in the summertime after we've taken some more data out there and just kind of continue that discussion slow.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, and particularly with issues to the signage and the striping and all those things, which are obviously necessary. So, yeah, I just wanted to see where we are on that. Yeah, I'm happy to move the minutes be accepted, approved, I should say.
Mhm. Can I get a second?
I'll second. This is Scott.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Item passes. All right, and we're ready for new business. Chance?
All right, hopefully you guys can still hear me out here. I'm having some technical difficulties with the audio. So first item of business today is we're revisiting 900 Nutt Street and then talking about 1000 Nutt Street. 900 Nutt Street is the block adjacent to Pier 33. And the 1000 block is, I think it's a 1000 block, actually might be 1100. I think it's addressed kind of oddly over here, but the block in front of or adjacent to Sawmill Point on the far north end of the CBD. The 900 block, currently on both of these blocks, there aren't any metered parking. Many days, very congested, a lot of activity coming from those apartments. And I think in most cases, it's residents that aren't wanting to drive into their contracted parking facilities there, or guests of those residential commercial buildings there. I think the only member on this committee that's been part of this discussion before is probably Scott. And we had a previous motion and initiative to run an app-only, text-only type metered parking setup up there. Unfortunately, we never implemented it. The city legal team at the time had some concerns of just going app-only. At the same time, previous city manager also had some concerns. So we kind of pulled back on that. Construction was happening. Pier 33 had just opened up. Park had just opened up. So we kind of just pulled back and let it ride for, I guess, about a year and a half there. So we're revisiting now. And what we would like to do on these two blocks is do two things. Number one, put a single multi-space pay station per block, and then also have the option of text to park and pay by phone mobile options. And what that one single multi-space mid-block pay station will do is just allow folks to just swipe and use their credit card if they choose to do so, and also drop coins in that machine also if they choose to want to go that route or don't have a credit card. I still think by going this route, we will push most of our activity and business to the app and text to park. So I think that will be accomplished and also at the same time can give us kind of another pilot look on the north end as things continue to develop and some of these streetscapings happen with development, potentially sticking to the north end of a pay station / text to park, pay by phone, mobile option instead of the older kind of Main Street single space meters that we have throughout the rest of or the core of downtown. And one thing I would like to recommend before we open it up for discussion is I think since right now there's no heavy retail on these two blocks, it's really residential and then some commercial coming in at Pier 33, some commercial coming in at the Met, and I don't think there's any commercial coming in at Sawmill Point, but similar to the 2 to 3 blocks in the far south end of downtown, I like to also recommend no time limits on these blocks. That way, if a residential guest chooses to come park on the street and stay overnight with someone that lives at either of these 2 to 3 large commercial developments, there's no real 2-hour time limit. It allows just some flexibility there. I don't think we need the heavy push for turnover on these 2 blocks yet, especially while we kind of gauge the new process here. And then before we open it up, just a little aerial of these 2 blocks. This is the 900 block adjacent to Skyline and Pier 33. As you can see, pretty heavily occupied there with no meters. I've heard that inside the parking deck, they've changed their process inside. They actually have a parking operator in there, and they are actually charging daily fees for their guests, kind of a public option set up on the first floor of that parking deck. And many of their guests are choosing to park on the street right out front because it is currently free. So as you drive down that block, it's normally pretty heavily occupied. And then this is the 1,000 block or 1,100 block right by Sawmill and Flats on Front. I think there's roughly about 30 spaces on this block as well. And then the idea would be to put a part of the pay station kind of mid-block where my cursor is. And then if you choose to walk and swipe credit card or pay cash, you can do so. Or we'll have signs up on those light posts, both sides of the block, noting the pay by phone, text to park, and pay station options. So with that, I will open it up for discussions, questions, and hopefully a motion to approve and push this forward.
Chance, are you going to include the 4 spaces that are on Cohen Street as well?
Oh, great question, Christina. Yes. Probably what we'll do there is, I didn't even think about that for this discussion, but yes, probably what we'll do there is put a sign up similar to the main block, just noting that there is a pay station around the corner. But yes, we'll put signage there too, and make that part of this new initiative.
Okay. But the gated areas, are they gated as of the end of the block?
At the end of Nut Street?
Yes, and that's private?
Yeah, there's a gate on both sides. One leads to, on the left, leads to Sawmill's little teeny tiny surface lot there. And then to the right leads up to either the surface lot or a portion of Flats on Front's parking deck. And then there's a public turnaround right there at the end that'll bring you right back down the block. So it would just be street level parking on our end.
What about the 6 spaces on Hornet? Over by, like, right in front of Metropolitan?
We're holding on Metropolitan, or we're holding on Harnett right now. With that development, and a traffic impact study. There was just some striping completed by the Metropolitan, I think, in the last 5 weeks or so. We are keeping most of that block no parking, and we need to look further at the portion of the block that's right at the Metropolitan's parking deck. There's still construction happening there, so it's a lot of loading, unloading. I think because of it's pretty tight right there in terms of distance left to right. I think long-term, once that project is 100% done, punch list items finished, I think the portion of that block right in front of the parking deck could probably be a good option for a commercial loading zone right there. And then we'll just keep no street level parking on that block other than concerts and ADA park.
So you're gonna replace the 6 spaces with commercial loading?
So right now you're talking Harnett Street, right?
Yeah, there's 6 spaces in front of the metropolitan area.
Yeah, so right in front of the Metropolitan, there's nothing marked. And we haven't put any signage across the street from the Metropolitan. We've marked it no parking currently. I think right in front of the Metropolitan on their side of the block, like basically right out in front of the parking deck, in between the parking deck and where their commercial space is going, is where I'm talking as a potential commercial loading zone. But we might need some further discussion on that.
Okay, all right. Well, I was just
Because right now, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, if we're gonna do all of Nut Street, it wouldn't be too much to add those 6 spaces as well, because people are currently parking there for free to go to the restaurants and everything. And if they want, they could park on the dock if they get there prior. But people are consistently parking in those spaces. I don't think they're metered.
Correct. Yep.
And
We can let's let the project. Yeah, I would say let's let the project finish 100% so that we don't have any of the constant loading, unloading, construction type stuff, and then we could easily add those 6 spaces into this initiative if needed.
okay.
Candace, what were the concerns? You mentioned a year and a half ago that this was brought up before and the city attorneys had some concerns. What were those and are they addressed in this action?
Yeah, the previous attorney and previous city manager, just kind of very, very high level, nothing specific, but very, very high level. Just with it being an app only option, our pilot from a year and a half ago was going to be just electronic phone app only. At that time, we didn't even have the text to park either. So not having a cash option, not having a credit card swipe type option at all on a public street or public metered parking street was really just the high level concerns. This would solve those concerns by putting that single mid-block pay station in, so that folks, if they chose not to want to pay via phone, via app, via text, they could walk to that pay station, swipe their credit card, or drop some coins in it.
Who is going to freak out about this? Is it the retailers? Is it? I mean, there's really no long-term residents to speak to down here.
No, there's not really any retailers down here currently. I think there's a couple spaces that are leased and are getting built out at Pier 33 and the Met, if I'm not mistaken. But I'd say I wouldn't call it a potential freak out. I think you might have some complaints coming from the residents and residents' guests that have been parking for free, and now we're putting a price tag on their use of the public right of way there. But there's also an empty parking deck that both of them are offering public parking portions within their parking deck that are pretty much wide open right now. So I would say if there's any heavy complaints coming from those developers, or those private communities there, they could revise their internal policies and make their public parking cheaper or offer free guest parking. So.
And I guess the corollary to that question is, can we frame it in a positive way to our friends in the various news outlets? I mean, the fact that we all know is it's going to be better for the retailers to have available street level parking that's not taken up by overnight guests. But I would bet that it doesn't stop the new retailers from going to the news and saying, crying foul over this. Saying, oh, we just moved in here and now you're going to charge for parking or whatever.
Yeah, we can, if we get any news requests, we can have some talking points on the commercial side of what parking meters do and really creating that turnover and creating space for that commercial use. And just an example for the commercial space that's, I think, getting outfitted now. I'm not sure who's moving in there. Pier 33. Pier 33 has their own parking structure of over 500 parking spaces, and a block south, the convention center has 275 public parking spaces. So this would just be primo on-street front of house type space. So there is long-term cheaper parking options on both sides of that development.
There's also
same with the Metropolitan and their commercial space. They've got 88 public parking spaces that are geared for their development and the public. So there are parking options on site as well.
Chance, I guess, what need does this meet? Why are we doing this? Is it a question of controlling what happens on the street and giving more access to, I'm not sure who we give more access to, but what's the need here? What need are we solving by doing this?
I think I didn't really have it in my talking points, but McKay pointed to one over the last year and a half to 2 years as these developments have opened up. There hasn't been any commercial use needs in this area, but you're going to have 2 restaurants opening up, possibly more. So it solves the turnover instead of having these spaces clogged up by residents or residential guests all day, every day, and all night like it is now.
Okay.
Number 2, it brings some extra revenue into the city's parking fund. And number 3, I think it just adds consistency to the rest of our parking program throughout the commercial business district.
Thank you.
You got to remember too, this is subtly a proactive move too, because when and if the city sells its south lot right there in the photo, the former PPD surface lot, and that gets developed, as well as on the other side, that empty parcel that is ripe for development. The assumption is once those are developed and built up, there will be more commercial use in those developments. So it really, back to McKay's note about just pushing turnover and having a prime front of house space for those that want to pay a couple bucks more versus parking in the parking deck. Great question, Michael. And a question that no one's asked is, why haven't we had any metered parking here historically? Why didn't we design these streets with metered parking?
Hey, Chance, I have one more question.
Yeah, go for it, McKay.
Why haven't we had metered parking here historically? And why didn't we design these streets for metered parking?
Great question, McKay. I'm not sure where you got that one from. The TRC and design of Sawmill Point predated me. And I think the requirement to put in meter posts and design for street level metered parking just wasn't in their plans, and no one caught it. I think it was in between kind of previous parking manager leaving and me coming in. And then the same thing on Pier 33. I personally, in those TRC meetings, just completely missed the design requirement for Pier 33. And by missing that on the front end, we just kind of let it ride for a bit while construction and the amphitheater's been opening up, and that's where we are now. So part of it was a miss, part of it was a miss in my.
Yeah, Chance, I'll give you some credit. I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a miss, like it's all new down there, right? And
Right,
the
yeah.
entire purpose, Michael, just to, for those that have been around parking and know like the entire, like why paid parking exists, it's to ensure there's turnover, right? If you don't have paid parking, then people will sit there all day. That's not good for business, all of those things. So it's not just to put money in the bank, it's to ensure a proper flow of parking and availability of parking. Because if you don't have it, then a waitress will park on Front Street for 12 hours. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense now that there's both businesses and residents and everything. So you got my support, Chance.
Scott, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, for those of you that frequent the North End, I think I'm seeing it more now since our offices are up here. There's also a steady rotation of recreational type vehicles that will pull on this block as well and come in on a Thursday and leave the following Friday, because there's really no true turnover and enforcement. So that's kind of some of the other stuff we're seeing on this block too.
Chance, help me out with the motion here. You're just looking for a motion to approve metered parking on 900,000 block of Nut Street. Anything else?
Yes, sir. Meter parking on the 900 and 1000 block of Nut Street with the multi-block pay station option. Yeah, which is a little bit different. So just throw that in there.
And Chance, these will hold the same hours as the rest of the parking in the city. So it's 6:30 essentially.
Yep. Yes, ma'am. 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 9 a to 6:30.
All right, if there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead and take a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion for the multi-block pay station in Texas Park with meter parking on 900 and 1000 block of Nut Street.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? All right, with that, this item passed. And we can move on to city administrative reports. So Chance?
All right, I'm going to hand this over to Corinne, Madam Chair. At first, she'll go through the pivot updates, and then I'll cycle back at the end and go through some city updates.
Great. All right, Corinne?
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay, so I did a February overview first. You can obviously see 2,601 citations were issued, about 1,400 were paid. Text to Park, this was the first overall month of Text to Park, the complete month in question. So we had over 6,400 transactions that equated to 11% over overall revenue. Pay by phone was at like about half of that at 18,000 transactions, which equated to 27% over revenue, where meters are still the overall preferred choice at 39%. And we also mobilized 16 vehicles in February. For March, 2,705 citations were issued with 1,219 paid. Text to Park increased a little. It's more adopting better. We have 8,677 transactions for the whole month of March, 14% over overall revenue that was equated for, with pay by phone still roughing around that 18,000, which equated for 24% over revenue, and meters still at the 34% overall revenue. And then we immobilized a couple other vehicles, so it was 20 vehicles at the end of the month. I did an event overview for February and March. March, we did our annual power washing. We washed the 4 through 6 floors of 929 Garage, the whole garage of River Place, and then the Market Street East stairwell we washed. We also purchased an industrial cat sweeper that is stationed at 929. This will eliminate a service contract and bring sweeping in-house for our team to go around per facility. In March, also, we had the beer, bourbon, and barbecue. These are strictly just 929 exclusive parkers. So we had 297 transactions. For March, you had the St. Patty's Parade. Again, this is only exclusive to 929 Garage. It was 240 transactions. And then the Novant Marathon for 929 in February, we had 384 transactions. I can't go to the next slide. Someone has to get. There you go. So these are just a couple action points. It's okay. Of the power washing. The first 2 corners are River Place, and we also detailed and washed the stairwell and courtyard at River Place as well. And the bottom 3 are all 929 Garage. So it was a big change and everything looks great. Finally, I compared kind of an apples to apples. We just had Azalea Festival, the 77th annual. This is fiscal year 23 Azalea Festival for Market, 2nd Street, and Convention Center by day. Thursday and Friday were obviously a concert day, so Convention Center, you see a little more revenue compared to Saturday, which was the overall highest from last year. And it brought in a total of estimate about 36,000. Next slide, please.
Corinne, I hate to stop you, but I'm guessing that the plan to maybe push some people in the 929 deck during the Azalea Festival weekend didn't really pan out.
Well, that's for fiscal year 23. I was just showing it for last year comparison.
Okay. Did you guys get any activity at the 929 deck this year for the Azalea Festival weekend? Yes, ma'am. It's in this slide right here. It's showing fiscal year 24. So on the top, you'll see the same comparison compared to 23, where it was Market, 2nd, and Convention Center. And that with totals, again, Saturday was like obviously the biggest day, bringing in 20 grand, but overall totals for those 3 facilities was 43,000. And then below, I separated out 929 Garage. So you can see we offer the Text to Park option, which was programmed at a flat rate of $10 for the Thursday and Friday concerts. You can also pay by pay station for the flat rate of $10. And then for the actual festival and the street fair, you had a pay on entry method. So I listed those all out separately. So your totals for 929 for the 2 concerts on Saturday and Sunday was a little under 9 grand, and it brought in about 900 transactions to estimate. Your overall totals, including 929, we did $52,664 for fiscal year 24 for Azalea Festival.
As opposed to 36 and 23?
That's correct.
How much of that is transaction and how much of that is rate increase?
Well, actually, we did a flat rate for fiscal year 24, where it was $10 for every single location, compared to last year, where it was actually more. I believe Convention Center charged $15.
Yeah, Michael, the rates are either flat or slightly higher the previous year because of the Convention Center rate. So when looking at this on the Azalea Fest, it's fairly apples to apples. So it's a big increase on the volume and revenue. So with no substantial rate increase to help it on this year.
Okay, so a significant increase in transactions.
As you can see too. Yeah, I would say one of the big increases is kind of talking to Christina's question about the 929 Skyline deck. Nearly 20% of that revenue was from the 929 deck, which we didn't have previous years. So that's a big chunk of it.
So the bulk of that increase is going to be on
And as you can see-
capturing more instead of actually having a higher attendance, correct?
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Say that again. I missed that.
So the bulk of that would be a capture rate instead of an actual attendance increase, right?
Correct. Yep.
We also have to have the people to fill it. And people who are coming this year. I mean, we could have opened the parking deck and 929 and, you know, not had the attendance to fill the date. So maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, weather was nearly perfect this year for the Azalea Fest. So I think that probably played into it as well.
Are we going to continue to keep the rates at $10 an hour? This is very reasonable, especially when we're shutting down an entire street for the weekend.
Yeah, Christina, I don't think there's any plans right now for the Azalea Festival and the city supported events to go above $10.
Okay.
The 929 and the convention center concert event rates are 20, but Azalea Fest, River Fest, any of the other city supported type stuff, we won't go over 10.
This is a good time for my quarterly plug of demand-based parking infrastructure, but that's all I'll say about that.
Hey, McKay, with the change on the 2 blocks of Nut Street that the committee just supported, that new technology that we're putting in on those 2 blocks will support a potential demand-based pricing on street initiative at some point. So I think that's potentially a first step, is having technology to potentially support that.
I think
Well, we
that'd
talked
be
about-
maybe even a good experiment from not only from a just because I think it's the right thing to do, but also from a PR standpoint. I think people could understand it better. You know, if nobody's there, then you pay $1 an hour, but if it's packed, then you pay $5 an hour or whatever it is. And that, you know, I think people get surge pricing in general. So I'm for it.
Yeah, it's something we can continue to talk to. Let's put the new technology in on these 2 blocks and then continue down that line. There are a couple private lots that are already going this route downtown. The private lot across from Manna, and I believe the private lot that's maybe at Princess and Water Street has surge pricing on Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and then different pricing the rest of the weeks.
While we're on the thread of technology, vehicle-based LPR and a barnacle chance.
Loud and clear, Scott.
As the LPR still hasn't gone vehicle-based, right? It's just for
No, LPR. Wait, am I on mute? Am I good? LPR is going vehicle-based to start at the 929 parking deck. We started that back in January. So that's going to be the first step. And then I think our next step with the LPR on any enforcement would obviously be right next door on these 2 new blocks of Nut Street. And then kind of hourly type parking on 4th Street where we don't have meters, and then potentially residential. So starting at 929 to make sure we're good to go with any tweaks and we know what we're getting into, and then we'll probably roll that out to the 2 new meter blocks, since it will be license plate based as well as soon as we put that out there.
That's really exciting. Good stuff, Chance. It's awesome.
It'll be it really will be a good trial run to make sure we can do it. The public's receptive to it, and it's in a kind of a very close proximity controlled environment between the 929 deck and those two blocks on the north end. So I think it's a good way for us to get our feet wet on some potential technology changes and enforcement. And another cool thing about that, and while we're on this, sorry to cycling back to that, the cool thing about what we are doing, potentially doing on Nut Street now, when you drive into the 929 parking deck, or if you park on these two new blocks of Nut Street, the 900 blocks and the 1000 block, your technology and payment options will be exactly the same. It will be the same pay station in the 929 deck as we'll put out on Nut Street. Will be the same text to park options. So I think uniformity and consistency on that is also a very positive on the public side.
Yeah.
All right, back to Corinne, sorry.
I'm all good. I'm turning it over to you.
All right, city updates. Handicap parking has been a challenge on the north end, especially with the 35 plus concerts and events we've had at Live Oak Bank Pavilion and the park. The park was built with no on-site parking, so really it's been street level parking during concerts. Stretch of parking next to the park is shut down for the concerts. So this season, we will be adding 44 new handicap parking spaces, most of them during events only, some of them full-time 24/7. So with the opening of Skyline and the 929 155 mini named parking deck, we're adding 22 parking spaces. Those are available ground level 24/7, 7 days a week. And then during concerts only, we will be taking and capturing 22 temporary ADA spaces for event only on street. And that's the foot of Harnett Street, the area that Christina mentioned prior, right by the Metropolitan. There's historically been an ADA drop-off loading zone there. So we're going to keep the loading zone on the north side of that block. We're going to add about 8 temporary ADA spaces on the south side of that block. And then we are putting an additional inventory of ADA spaces at the very end of Nut Street by Pier 33. In addition, there's already been 13 spaces at the Convention Center parking deck, and then 48 spaces spread throughout the Cape Fear Community College facilities. And this is kind of the area we're doing this. So this is the 0 block of Harnett Street. The open blue triangle is where the drop-off zone will remain. The marked off spaces here is where we'll put in temporary ADA parking for events. I think we're timing it from 3 p.m. day of events, 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. And then this section here on the 900 block of Harnett Street, same thing. We'll come in with blue ADA cones, reflect the signage 48 hours in advance. And then these 13 spaces, which will be the 13 closest spaces on Nut Street here, will also be temporary ADA parking just for concerts. Before I move on to the next section, any questions, concerns on the ADA event parking? It's a huge positive. We presented to council back in March and got a big reception. There's been a lot of vocal requests of the city to add a larger inventory closer to Live Oak Bank Pavilion for concerts. So I think this will be a huge positive for those events.
Chance, just make sure whatever the ADA regulation is for the size of these spaces or whatever unloading, offloading percentage you have to have, just as sure as you think you're doing a good thing, somebody will come along and sue you for it. So, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
Noted.
It's different because they're temporary, but ADA is just a really sticky program.
Yeah, noted, McKay. That's why there's been some hesitation from the city's attorney's office, and this is the first year they approved this. We recommended this plan 3 years ago when the amphitheater opened. There aren't any on-street DOJ requirements per se. Most of them are related to off-street parking lots, parking deck, building type facilities. So there's no required hashing, there's no required loading, unloading, any of that. And I think since we're doing it in a temporary interim event only fashion, it gives us a little more flexibility. So I think this year will be the first year and will be a trial. And if we have any challenges or any legal exposure, obviously we can take this away. And I think the last thing on my list is capital projects that are looming. We have awarded both contracts for the structural repairs at Market Street and the Convention Center. The Market Street project came in at $388,000. I believe the contract was signed this week. Right now, we would probably be looking to mobilize the starts of both of these projects probably late May, early June. And they're both, Convention Center is probably a little quicker than Market, but both somewhere between the 6 to 9 months in terms of duration, start to finish. Not super impactful in terms of losing any parking spaces at either for long periods of time. We'll lose the rooftop for sections when they're repairing the expansion joints and putting on that waterproofing membrane at the end. And same at Convention Center, we'll lose a good chunk at times during events. And definitely when we do that waterproofing on the top floor. But the good thing is Market Street during the week, there's a lot of open spaces. Same with Convention Center, and with the Convention Center, if we've got closed spaces for repair during a heavy event, we now have the 929 parking deck a couple blocks up the street to where we can put overflow. So we've got overflow alternative parking options when and if we do close sections of the parking deck here. And Madam Chair, that's it on the city updates.
All right. Thank you, Corinne. Thank you, Chance. Corinne, thanks for all you guys do. I love the pressure washing pictures. It's nice to see a clean parking deck. All right. Let me find my agenda here. All right. We are going to go to organizational updates. Is anybody here from WPD? Is Lieutenant Nichols here? No? Okay.
Yeah, he's not here. He shot me a note. Hang tight. Let me see if he gave me any updates in writing. Sorry, he sent an email to me right before things started. Yep, no update other than he wasn't going to be able to make it last minute. So.
All right. At-large members. Any updates? No. Cape Fear Community College. No. DBA.
So the only update I have for DBA, Sam Sawyer here, by the way, is that we are going to be distributing a survey to the downtown business owners in the upcoming week to get feedback on their experience with the Azalea Festival. I think the parking revenue and being able to present that back to DBA will be a good thing to kind of keep in mind as we're, navigating those survey responses. We're looking forward to seeing that feedback and seeing how, as we are moving forward with what is such a Wilmington staple year after year, we can continue to support downtown businesses during that festival. So that's my only update on that front.
Thank you, Sam. All right, New Hanover County.
No updates for me.
All right, thank you. Ro,
The only thing that, from the Rose side of things would be that, Dennis McGarry is going to be leaving as president at the end of his term. And he will be replaced by a man named Ed Sagar, Sager. But things will just continue, I think, as is.
great, thank you. All right, and for WDI, yeah, we're still working on adding businesses to our downtown parking map. Hopefully we'll go live here this month at some point. We have had the Blue Tone Media, we've been working with them on doing all of our website updates and for this particular project. So we are having them add a portion to our website where businesses can go in, submit a photograph and help us input their information. We'll work on continuing to develop this over the summer, hopefully with getting as much business participation as possible and adding their hours and information and websites. We are doing the best we can to do that ourselves, but with a staff of 2, we'll need some community support behind this project. So we're going to be putting a call out for businesses to input their information here in a couple of weeks, and then hopefully via way of their information, we'll be able to have this fully ready by hopefully August to begin pushing it out as part of a marketing campaign for Bring It Downtown. In other news, we worked really hard this year, both Caitlin and I, to pass out and distribute barricade passes for the Azalea Festival, and working side by side with the Azalea Festival staff to try and make sure that there's as much support for our downtown business community as possible for this year. So if in any of those surveys that DBA should send out, if the barricade passes were helpful or not helpful, we'd really like to know. You know, for you, Sam, if you could include maybe a snippet of a question in that survey regarding the barricade passes and how those worked, that would be very helpful. Because it really did take a lot of work to get all those passes out, and we distributed more than 2,000 passes over the course of the 3 weeks leading up to the Azalea Festival. And that's all the updates for WDI.
Christina, we should definitely be able to add that question, and I'll pose it to the board, but I don't see that being an issue. And we can also help in distributing to our newsletter list a call for businesses to add to that directory for Bring It Downtown as well.
Great, thank you so much.
Of course.
Any other items of business that members of this committee would like to discuss before adjourning? All right.
I got a quick question, and I apologize, I was not here for last month's meeting. Are we moving to Zoom permanently, or was this just a one-off transition for the last 2 months, I guess?
Hey, Troy, with the full relocation of city offices to the 929 North Front Street building, and the vacating of 305 and 115 3rd Street, which was where our home was. We are Zoom in the interim until we can get one of the conference rooms on the first floor of this building just outfitted to be hybrid ready with camera, microphone, and kind of public setup in and out. So it will be Zoom interim. My assumption is maybe Zoom through the summer, and then we might have a feasible option on site for a hybrid type setup come late summer, early fall.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Great question.
All right, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Go
Aye.
ahead and leave the
Aye.
Zoom. Thank you,
Aye.
everyone. Hope you have a great
Bye.
week.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.